Nik Dfine is the definitive tool for reducing noise in your images. And the great thing about Dfine is you don't have to just take the noise out of the entire image. You can selectively reduce noise by area or by color. It's really amazing. So let's dive in and take a look at that right now. If we go to our workshop images folder, open the Dfine folder, we have a few things. We're going to start with Osorno Volcano .tiff. I'm going to load that into Photoshop. I chose this image specifically because it's really noisy. If we zoom in to 100%, you can see that in the sky, around the volcano, and in the lake here, we have all kinds of noise. This is a specific kind of noise. It's color noise. Take a closer look at this. You'll see this magenta, these magenta spots everywhere. That's caused by the high sensitivity, the high ISO of my camera. We want to reduce that. So inside of Photoshop, I have my Nik collection palette open. If you don't see that, just go to File, Automate, and then click on the Nik collection palette, and that will show up. So then I'm going to click on Dfine. We're going to start reducing this noise. We're going to start with the simplest noise reduction technique, and that is just reducing all the noise automatically. So this is what you'll do most of the time. So we have our image in Dfine here. I can fit this so we see everything. And you'll notice right off the bat, there's this little square here. So what Dfine is doing is it's automatically looking at the image and it's looking for areas that have noise so that it can sample that noise and figure out what the noise is and what the noise isn't so it can remove the proper thing. So by default, as soon as it comes in, it's doing all of that behind the scenes and it's going to show you the de-noised image right off the bat. That's the first thing you're going to see is noise reduction already having taken place. So if we look at this at 100%, we can see that it's got much lower noise. I can compare before, wow, after, and that is fantastic. Our noise has been reduced. But what we want to do is explore the menus and sort of understand what's happening behind the scenes so we can control that noise reduction intelligently. How can we choose which noise is reduced? Let's take a look. On the left-hand side, you will see that there are no profiles. So there are no filters or anything in Dfine. We can create our own profiles. I'm going to get to that at the end of this lesson. So right now, just don't worry about this little section right here. We have our standard viewing at the very top with something new. We have mode, which is RGB, and then we have red, green, blue, luminance, chrominance, and these two contrast and color noise things. So as we go forward, you'll start seeing how we can use these. But inside of an image, an RGB image that's red, green, and blue, that's how digital images are made. So we have 3 color channels that are mixed to create all of the colors in our scene. When you capture an image, those 3 color channels don't have the same amount of noise. Sometimes, and usually you'll have more noise in the blue channel than in the red and the green channel. Not always, but generally. And so we can go in here and click just on the blue channel to see how much noise is there, or just the green channel, or just seeing the pixels from the green channel or the red channel. That's going to help us as we navigate to the right-hand side to do some selective noise reduction to figure out where the noise is. So by default, Nik Dfine is going to do a fantastic job of figuring it out on its own, but if it needs a little help, we can go in there and manually look at that with our eyeballs. We also have luminance and chrominance to see. Luminance is the brightness and darkness of an image, so we can look in there and see how much noise is coming from our camera that's just sort of like film noise. It's just grain on the noise. That's luminance noise. Chrominance noise is color noise. It's a different kind of noise. That's the kind of noise we're seeing in this image. It's all those magenta dots. And when we look at that, if you'll go back and forth, in this chrominance channel, you can see right off the bat, wow, there is a lot of noise there. In fact, if I click the before, we can see there's just a ton of stuff coming at us, and the after, that's been reduced. Let's compare that with the luminance, before, not a lot. After, not a lot. So we know that the noise in this image is chrominance. It's color noise. That's what we need to fix. And so these modes here will help us figure out where our noise is happening. These other two buttons right here, contrast noise and color noise, are going to help us with our selective adjustments. So we're going to get there in a little bit. In fact, you'll see that there are two buttons over on the right-hand side. These are the exact same things. These are for helping us detect and see where we're correcting noise as we're selecting things. We're going to do that a little bit later. Okay, so again, we have our compare before and after. The first thing you'll see when the image is loaded in is the fixed image, the automatically fixed image. So if you want to see the noise, you'll have to hit your compare button. We have our zooms, that standard zoom. I recommend that you look at your noise reduction at 100% as you're doing things, because if you look at it zoomed out, you're not going to really necessarily see exactly what's happening, and you might overdo some things. So go back and forth from 100% to fit or whatever zoom that you'd like to see. Okay. So how is Dfine reducing noise? So on the right-hand side, we have a few things. We have our standard loop and histogram that we've become accustomed to before and after, but this is really where we start to reduce noise. When we look at measuring image noise, there are two modes. There's automatic, that's just going to automatically reduce noise on the entire image. And then we can do manual adjustments where we can selectively choose where we reduce the noise. So by default, it's all done. We can hit apply, we can hit save, and that's going to do a good job of 80–90% of the images. Just load it in, hit apply, you're done. But what we're going to do here is we're going to look at how we can manually reduce the noise. So a few things that we can do here. We can go into our reduce noise panel here, and we can override how much we're reducing the noise. So it's set at 100%, so it's intelligently reducing noise. We can increase that all the way up to 200% if we want. That's probably going to make it too mushy in most instances. You can see the top of this mountain is turning into a very out of focus mushy thing. We can take it down to just 10 or 15 or 20%. So we're going to increase the contrast, but we're also going to include more noise. So that is, it's up to you. And also notice we have color noise and contrast noise. We talked about that earlier. So in this image, we're reducing color noise. I can say, let's reduce more of that color noise or less of that color noise. It's up to you. The defaults work so well, I rarely change them, but they're there for you to change. We also have our selective adjustments. We're going to get to that in the next example or two. And then we also have edge preservation. So in an image like this, we have big areas that are just solid, and then we have something that has an edge like this mountain. If we start reducing noise, those edges can become softer and softer. So edge preservation, if you turn that on, you can increase that to keep these edges defined while still reducing the noise in the solid area. So that's just another intelligent way to do that. We also have the ability, if we have a JPEG image, sometimes you're shooting not in RAW, not in TIFF, but in JPEG, you'll get artifacts, big blocks of compression. So you can click on this JPEG artifact reduction, and that will clean that up. This is not a JPEG image, so it's going to make no difference. Then also, you'll have banding on some JPEG images, specifically in the sky or solid areas where you have a transition from one color to the next or from one brightness to a dark. You might see bands. And so if you click on that, it'll smooth those bands out. This is a nice high resolution TIFF image, so we don't have those issues, but those tools are available to us. We also have the ability to go in and measure our color ranges, and we're going to do that next with a different image. So I'm going to cancel out of this. I think you get a good idea of sort of the overall interface here. Play with this. Let's look at a more advanced noise reduction exercise. So let's go back into our Nik Dfine folder, and then we have stars. So I'm going to drag that into Photoshop here so we can have a look at this. This image is tricky because we have, at full 100%, you can see that we have stars, those are not noise, but we also have color noise around those stars. So we have to manually help Dfine figure out what is a star and what is noise, because to the human eye, they look almost identical. And so let's see how we can do that. So I'm going to go into Dfine and click on that. Automatically, Dfine has chosen this area to the left, a little area in the Milky Way, an area to the right to sample to figure out where the noise is. I don't want it to sample the Milky Way because I know those are stars. Those are things that I don't want to get to be too soft. I want to keep that nice and sharp. So I can take these and I can select areas that make more sense to me. So I'm going to go up here and grab this guy and make it a little larger. So I'm getting this area that's just noise. There's no stars over there. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to zoom in to 100%. I can hit the space bar and then pan over. I get a little hand so I can really see where I'm getting. So on this one over here, I'm going to zoom so I'm getting no stars, just the noisy area as much as possible. So I'm really helping Dfine out. I can move this as well. Then I'm not going to have this one here. Let's pull it down somewhere here. So I'm being a little bit more intelligent because Dfine might not know what a star is. So now I've defined my 3 areas, and then I need to say measure. So after I've moved those, Dfine needs me to tell it to re-measure that image. And then as we look at this at 100%, you can see the before and the after. It's removing just the noise and it's leaving those stars, which is pretty amazing. So that gives us a better image to work with in the future. In fact, what we're going to do here is we're not going to do anything else. I'm going to hit apply. Now I have this in Photoshop, and then really quickly I want to show you what the results of this are. I'm going to go in here to Nik Color Effects. I've got a preset. I've included it in your presets folder. It's called Milky Way, and so I'm going to let Nik Color Effects come in here and do its thing to this image. And now we have this brilliant image that is well defined, and you can see the before and after, and it's really amazing. We've reduced the noise just where we need it. Let's look at selective noise reduction. It's the most advanced technique, and so we have another image to look at. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Nik Dfine. Let's grab Sydney Harbor and pull that into Photoshop as well. And just a reminder, you can do all of this in these apps as a standalone project. You don't need Photoshop. I'm doing that so I can do some more processing later. Generally, you reduce noise and then you do your processing. Let's take a look at this image. So as we zip around, I have this at 100%. We can see that we have these boats and a lot of guy wires and poles and things. There's not a lot of noise that's distracting in these fine details. But then we have areas like this rooftop. It's pretty noisy. And then up here we have the sky, and the sky is really noisy. And we're starting to see some of that banding from these lights over here. So what I want to do is in this image, I don't want to reduce the noise from the entire image. I just want to take care of the noise from certain areas. We've got a big area here for this ship that's sort of noisy, this rooftop, and the sky, but I want to leave the rest of this alone. And I can do that in Dfine. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Nik 6 Dfine, and let's go in and start reducing the noise in specific areas. So here we go. Right off the bat, the automatic selections have been made, but we don't want that. We want to do something differently. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to click on this and I'm going to measure the sky. The sky is the thing that we care about most. And then also I'm going to click on the right hand side, this select areas. I'm going to click that and I'm going to select this boat. So this, then I'm going to also add one here. Those are the 3 areas that I really care about. So now I'm going to measure the noise in those 3 areas. Nik has reduced the noise from the entire image. That's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, I'm going to start adding some control points and control lines. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a control line. I click that right about here. And yeah, I'll put it right here. So it's just above the buildings. I'm going to grab my little eyedropper and put that on the sky itself. Now, if you'll notice over here on this control line, we don't have a mask over here like we're used to see what we've selected. Well, remember we talked about those two modes up here, these two buttons, contrast noise and color noise. They show up right over here as well. Those are what we use to see what we're selecting with our control points. So I know that this is the sky. Anything that's white is going to be affected. Anything that's black is not going to be affected. Anything that's in between, that's any gray or brighter colors, that is also going to be affected. So we're seeing that noise reduction is going to be applied to some of the parts of the buildings and the sky and nothing else. We can sort of move this around. We can get it exactly where we want it to be. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go back to my RGB mode. So when we go in here at 100%, I'm going to go to the top of this. What I can do, I'm going to rename this sky. And we have lots of color noise in the sky, so I'm going to increase that to about 200%. And we can start looking at before and after, before and after. We're just getting the sky there. That looks really great. The other thing I'm going to do here is now we're going to look at this color noise from the overall channel. You can see we're just reducing the noise at the top of the screen. I want to reduce the noise in two more places. The first place is this Sydney rooftop here. So let's zoom in to 100%. Let's go over there. And now let's get a control point. Click on that and just click on the rooftop. Again, we can click on our color noise to see what we're selecting. That looks pretty good. I don't really have to do much to this. Let's change our luminance and chrominance just a bit to see if we can refine exactly what we're getting. I think that's pretty good. I'll make this a little bit smaller. There we go. Now we have that rooftop. I'll name that rooftop. It's pretty good. And then let's look at this in a normal mode. We can see before and after. Oh yeah, just that rooftop is being affected. And then we can go over here. We've got this ship. And so what we want to do is we want to reduce the noise in the ship. So once again, get a control point, click on that. Let's go to our color noise to see exactly what's being affected. We want this to apply to the ship in this area right here. That looks pretty good. Let's try our luminance, bring that down a little bit. That's good. Okay, and so I'll go back to our normal RGB mode, and we can see before and after. We're just affecting that ship. We can fit that. So we've just reduced the noise in the sky, on this rooftop, and on this ship. We've left the details in all of the boats and all of the things that we don't want our noise to be reduced. And so this is a great starting place to take this into Photoshop or Photolab, start playing with colors and do things. We've reduced the noise in only those places that we wanted to reduce our noise. There's one more way we can selectively reduce noise, and that's by color channel. So what I'm going to do here is, instead of using these control points, I'll delete these really fast. I'm not going to show this again. We know that I need to be careful about deleting these control points. So all of these are deleted. There's one more method here, color ranges. So what we can do here is we can select different colors to target. And so we have blue. I'm going to go up here to the blue of the sky, and orange we don't really need. I'm going to delete that. And then maybe this gray over here is another color that we should target. And there you go. We can just say reduce the noise in those colors, in those color ranges, and we've effectively done the same thing. We're reducing the noise in a certain area very, very quickly. And just by looking at these examples, you can see the power of Dfine. You can automatically reduce noise for an entire image. You can selectively reduce noise in certain areas of an image, and you can choose which channels to reduce noise. It is the most powerful noise reduction tool out there. Well, now that we know about Dfine, it's time for us to look at our next app.